Skype front and center here. And okay, well, hey everybody, welcome to Zenny 62 this evening, and this is a special. As you can see right here, we've got this lined up. This is a special live stream discussion with three friends, and we are talking about. Well, first of all, let me introduce my friends as I get this lined up properly, because some of you are probably wondering why the camera is a little above, and now it is precisely centered there. And Grand Lake Theater owner Alan Michaan and his wife are in the screen. Say hey, everybody. And
hello. This is Yvette.
This is Yvette. And then Gary Meyer is on the phone. Gary, how you doing?
I'm here.
Awesome. Gary is Gary's a longtime founder and owner of the Telluride Film Festival and owner of the Balboa Theater. Alan is the famous owner of the Grand Lake Theater. And we're going to
also Gary was one of the co-founders of Landmark Theaters and ran that for years with them.
Absolutely, Landmark Theaters prior to the Telluride. And
I didn't found Telluride. I came in the 25th year and was there for 16 years.
Thank you. And
so I don't want to take.
And hopefully, everybody's doing well. This is a difficult time for the nation and the world. First of all, how are you all doing in and how you guys are doing in Oakland?
The theater's closed, obviously, as is pretty much almost every theater in the United States now.
Mm-hmm.
We closed Grand Lake on Sunday evening, March 15th, which coincidentally was 1 year anniversary of the day that Yvette and I met. We celebrated our anniversary by closing our theater. But temporarily. But we sort of jumped the gun. Everyone else closed after getting the stay-in-place order the following day that was issued. But I felt that watching what was going on in New York, and what was going on in Italy and other countries, it did not make sense for me to expose my employees and my patrons to any possible contagious virus. I call it COVID 45. What I call it, 45. Yeah, COVID 45. Because 45 is Trump's designation as president. So to me, it's COVID 45. So anyway, I decided. Obviously, it was clear what was about to happen, and so I went ahead and it broke my heart. We closed the theater, and the theater really, in all the years that I've been operating in Grand Lake, which I've had since January of 1980 when I took over, it's only the second time I've closed it. No, excuse me, it was the third time I closed it. So I closed it for a few days after the '89 earthquake, so we could get structural engineers in there to inspect the building and give us a green light to say, okay, it's okay, you can reopen, it's safe. And then I closed it one more time for a single day when I was protesting the city of Oakland parking policy of extending the parking hours from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., which was part of the occasion of me staging a parking revolt against the city of Oakland, because they very, very underhandedly and sneakily, in a secret late night session on June 30th at midnight, decided that they would raise all of the meter hours till 8 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. And then as of the following day, July 1st, and the next day at 6 p.m., they sent out legions of meter enforcement people and blanketed the city with parking tickets, even though there was not a single sign anywhere said that the meters were enforced until 8 p.m. It devastated my business and all nighttime businesses, restaurants, and everyone else in Oakland that had a business that was open in the evening. I created a petition that said rescind or recall. I gathered 10,000 signatures. Another group in Chinatown created their own similar type of petition. We forced the council to rehear it, which took 3 months because they went off on their summer recess for 2 months. and let us all suffer and let our businesses suffer for 2 months. And I got 500 people to show up at that council meeting. And boy, did they get an earful from the community. They did roll it back to 6 people. So it was a success.
Man, oh man, Alan's been through the wars, and Gary, I know you've lived some of the wars that he's talked about. But Gary, I know you're consulting now, but what are your thoughts about what Alan and the movie industry are going through right now, and people that you're connected with? I mean, Gary.
Hi. The movie industry has always been an up and down thing since pretty much the beginning, because there was radio, and there was television, pay TV, VHS, cable, DVD. It goes on and on and on, and it always sort of survived. This is the toughest thing that's ever happened to the industry, as far as I'm concerned, because in fact, basically the industry has shut down. There are no regular movie theaters open in America and much of the world. There are a few drive-ins that are allowed to be open because you're staying within the confines of your car, but they don't really have much to show because there are really no movies that are being opened in theaters. And there's this challenge because the studios have a lot of money invested in their films. And if a film is supposed to come out for Easter this year, for example, they look at it and say, well, we don't know that we can hold on for Cell's World Tour, which is a kids movie. That will go out on demand. Most of the studios are saying they're going to hold off. And because film production has also been halted, the movies that they had planned for their 2021 release schedule will be pushed back. So there will be sort of a natural flow. Movies that were going to come out in the next couple of months will come out hopefully in late summer and fall, and then push other things back because they won't be ready before then anyway. But that's okay. What is going to happen, though, depends on how long we're out. Presumably, people will be anxious to get back to doing things out of their homes, and movies are one of the least expensive, most accessible things that they can do. But some of these big circuits, like AMC, Regal, Cinemark, they are so heavily leveraged. They owe so much money for all their buildings. They're going to have a struggle getting all their theaters back open. Inevitably, one or two of them are probably going to file for bankruptcy. That doesn't mean they'll close, but it'll give them the cover to close some of the theaters. So I believe there will be a reduction in the number of operating screens by the time this thing is finished. That may be healthy in some way, because right now I think there are too many screens. Most of the distributors, and I know particularly Disney, and Alan plays a lot of Disney at the Grand Lake, Disney really does believe in the theatrical window very strongly. They know that those films, which cost them a lot of money to make, need that theatrical to generate a tremendous amount of revenue and then create an awareness of those movies for their eventual appearance on video on demand and on Disney Plus, as well as all of the side products that they generate, the licensed toys and books and music, how it affects Disneyland, which is closed now, the Disneylands, but they would reopen, but they have things that are inspired by the movies. So that's really good news since Disney kind of corners the market. The bad news for theater owners is that means Disney will probably raise the percentage rates that they charge the theaters to play their film. Alan, what do you think?
Well, I'm hoping they don't do that.
Good press.
Clearly, our margins are very, very, very low, and I think that Disney, I think the big studios understand the value that theaters bring to their product. By releasing first the movie theaters, we create an identity for a title. And without that identity, you don't really have the want to see downstream after the whole theatrical rollout has completed, and then people are going to buy it on DVD, or they're going to pay per view, or wait to see it on HBO or one of the other premium channels like Disney Plus. So I think that they understand the predicament we're in. We understand the predicament they're in. I know that some people in exhibition were critical of Disney and Universal when Bloodshot went out immediately on pay-per-view and Onward went out immediately on pay-per-view when we shut all of our theaters. I think that was the only thing they could do. I mean, for the people who made those movies and for the people who produced them and the studios that financed them. I think that if they hadn't gone and immediately tried to get some revenue out of them, they would have been all but just forgotten by the time we get back in business. So I think that was okay. But I still think that when you have a movie that costs hundreds of $millions to make and market and put out into the theaters and the world marketplace, you only get that money back by first having a theatrical release. And these days, it's not unusual. The market outside of the United States has become much bigger than the United States market. And so it's not unusual for a blockbuster film to do $1 billion at the box office worldwide. And out of that $1 billion, a little more than 50% of it's going back to the studio anyway. So they need that marketplace in order to be able to justify spending hundreds of millions of dollars to make a movie. And so they still need this. And I think that, yes, and I think that, we're all of us, we're all stuck in our homes going stir crazy. We're only 9 days into this, home confinement thing here, and we really want to go out and see a movie, which we can't do. We're staying at home. And I think that when the time comes, and it will come, and we don't know whether it's going to be 14 days, 21 days, 2 months, 3 months, 6, we don't know yet. Let's pray to God that they come up with some kind of a vaccine, so that this thing can get knocked down quick. But when that day comes, that we can all go back out and feel safe in a restaurant, in a theater, in a sports stadium, whatever, I think that you're going to see numbers of attendance that we've never seen. I think people are just going to come roaring back into our venues. And I know that with all of this wonderful film that, we were supposed to be playing, films like A Quiet Place 2 and Mulan and the James Bond movie and Black Widow, Marvel film that was supposed to be showing on May 1 from Disney, studios will probably work together so they don't throw everything out at once, and that we have some sort of a reasonable, staged release pattern of these things. And people are going to want to see these movies.
I believe so.
Yes.
Over content, it's more affordable, easier to get out, take your family. Those are the things that people are going to be able to do right away. Go to dinner and go to movies. Get back to the traditionalism. I definitely believe it.
Hey, question for all of you. First of all,
I agree with that.
Gary, Mark, go ahead. Go ahead, Gary. Go ahead, Gary.
Completely. What the theaters do need to do, though, is make sure that they up their game so that the experience when people come to their theater is better than it was before. So when people come to rush out to get out and see this, they think, God, this is great. I want to be doing this regularly. I'm going to be coming back here all the time. So, because a lot of theaters kind of came late.
Yeah, I agree with Gary. A lot. Yes, Sam? Go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Gary.
I was listening to you.
I was saying I agree with Gary. I mean, sadly, a lot of these theater circuits, have just not done a good job as far as their presentation to the public. And really, what are we selling our patrons? We're selling them picture and sound. And you have to have the best picture and good quality and good sound. And I think that the fact that almost every theater in the country subjects its audience to 20, 30 minutes of commercials before the movie is a scandal. They're paying a premium price to go in and see a movie. The only thing that should ever be shown in front of a movie is coming attraction previews, so that you could build awareness and excitement for films that are in the pipeline downstream. I think that, as part of what maybe should happen with retooling of the theater business is an elimination of screen advertising. I think it's an awful thing to make people pay to see commercials. By the way, we don't ever.
Yeah, just a quick note, folks. Everyone we're on with Alan and Yvette Michaan and Gary Meyer. If you have a question, you could type it in. Thank you all for coming into view. You can type it in, and I'll get to it as I can. Hey, I just want to have a little fun here, because how did you two meet, Alan and Gary? Because you all know each other for quite a while.
Well, we were vicious competitors.
We were competitors. Yeah, we were competitors, friendly competitors. And when you're in the film business in San Francisco, you all know each other. and you share certain information and ideas, and you keep other things to yourself. We both started in Berkeley. Sorry.
Yeah, and Zenny, back in the day, Gary and I both started in the film business in the 70s. I built my first theater when I was 19 in 1972. Back in those days, every major studio had a branch office in San Francisco. We were one of the hubs and the Western hubs, and so we would go and sit down and talk to the people who was doing the heads of distribution of the branch managers there, and the salespeople and the bookers, and there was a lot of social events that would happen, like variety club parties and other parties. There were certain bars that we'd all go hang out in on Friday evenings in the city. And we all knew each other. It was a film community. And the exhibitors, there were a lot of independent exhibitors in those days. And we all, were friendly. They would have golf tournaments and things. I don't play golf. I didn't do that. But there was really a film community. And later on, though, the studios, one by one, all closed their branch offices in San Francisco, moved everybody down to LA. They closed Salt Lake City and they closed Seattle. Moved everybody down to LA. They closed Salt Lake City and they closed Seattle. And we're at one time, all this camaraderie that went away, and now we deal with everyone on the phone.
Wow. Gary, you want to add to that?
Every city that had distributors, had a thing called Film Row.
Right.
It was an area in San Francisco's Tenderloin district.
Oh, okay.
And there's a screening room down there where we could go to previews of movies, and a lot of other, we just text and go down and we go to lunch with each other because we all were within a few blocks of each other. That doesn't exist anymore.
Oh my God. Hey, so Alan and Gary, what do you think, and Yvette as well, what do you all think of the presidents and the Congress just passing this $2 trillion assistance program? You hold out hope that it will help get the movie industry back on a footing quickly?
I haven't really looked at it closely yet, Denny. As I understand it, it's really SBA loan type of things that they're doing. Mm-hmm. And my experience with SBA was it was just too much of a labyrinth to ever get anything out of them. Mm. And so I can't really comment on it. Maybe you've looked at it more, Gary.
Yeah, NATO, which is the National Association of Theater Owners, has been very actively making sure that there is a carve out there so that theaters get help. How they're going to get help, we don't know. Whether the circuits to get the help or the independents, they'll have to find some sort of a balance on that. And obviously, there are a lot of businesses that are all looking for a piece of that pie. But the theater industry is definitely included in what is allowable, if you will.
How much per theater would help? I mean, I don't expect you to really have the answer, but it did occur to me. It would be nice to know if they actually carved out that, piece.
$2 trillion per theater.
Yeah, I
like that. I like that number. I like that number too. What is the future of film? I mean, take us. How long does it take for us to get through this? What happens to the industry after this? And Alan, how can the city of Oakland help the Grand Lake, and how can its fans help the Grand Lake survive this stuff?
Well, Zenny, I'm very fortunate in that I don't have a lot of debt at the Grand Lake. I mean, we have a mortgage, but I can cover the mortgage payment, month to month. What's a little inconvenient for me right now is we just invested $500,000 in solar panels on the roof. The Grand Lake, but when we go online later this week or next week, when the installation is complete, we would have been generating 80% of our electrical use off the solar panels on the roof. Now, theoretically, assumedly, we're feeding into the grid, and PG&E will be paying us back for the energy that we are generating, which will help with the payment on the solar panels, because I did finance those on a 5-year type of a financing instrument. So we're okay there. We don't have a lot of fixed costs. What I worry about is there are a lot of companies out there that have been very, very growth oriented and have a lot of locations and a lot of debt. And I was talking to someone just the other day. I mean, in the old days, back in the 80s, I operated about 20 theaters at one time. And I had a big staff in the office and a huge overhead and all of these rents. And if this had happened to me then with 20 theaters, I would not have been able to survive it. I don't have to go bankrupt because there was no way I would be able to pay the rents to all of those landlords and the other fixed costs that would have remained while the theaters sat closed. We'd have been gone in a month. So I think I'm in a unique position just being a single theater owner. I've had that theater for 40 years. All of the equipment that's in the theater, the seats, the projectors, all the remodeling, everything that I financed over the years, that was all paid back years ago. So I don't have all of these, ongoing debts that have to be paid. So we're in a pretty good position. I can't say how that works for other theaters, especially companies that have been growing fast. When you look at these big companies that are always building these megaplexes everywhere. And I think they're the ones that are going to really be in a pickle. This goes on for too long.
Now, Gary, I got to pull a plug for Gary's Balboa. I'm sorry, Yvette. Were you going to say something? Go ahead, Yvette, please.
Yeah, fine, but we can't wait for the customers.
Oh, we look forward to having our friends back in the theater.
All the customers to come to the theater. That's what we're missing. That's what we need.
And Gary, you, I believe, still are the owner of the Balboa Theater in San Francisco, which is a fantastic place to see a film as well. What about the Balboa? Same question, the future of it and all this.
I'm not actually an owner anymore. I turned it over to Adam Bergeron and Jamie Holker, who do a great job, and they also run the Vogue. Mm-hmm. My feeling is that, like Alan, the smaller operators who can survive this period of time, that don't have to pay so much out of rent and other fixed costs and be able to reopen, are much more adaptable. As independent operators, you can find interesting things to do. I mean, anything and everything that goes on at the Grand Lake is unique. Putting solar in. There are a couple other theaters around that have solar in the country, but not many. This is a major thing that Alan has done. That's a community thing. It sets an example for everybody, and ultimately it's going to save him money, and it's going to take a while to do that. But that's the kind of thing that he can do. A big circuit putting solar in across the country in a couple of thousand theaters, that would be impossible to find that. But also in terms of your program and your staffing and that whole presentation you do. So the Balboa and the Vogue do lots of special events, which are really what pay their bills, the special events. The first run movies they play don't do that great because those films are playing in 5 or 6 theaters in San Francisco in addition to their theater. But that's sort of what is available to them most of the time is the first run stuff. Alamo is a really interesting example because Alamo is a fairly fast growing small chain, but they are very, very flexible in what they do. They have a tremendous food and drink component. That's where they make their money is the food and drink. You can get, they have big bars, you can have all kinds of cocktails, they have fancy foods, and they charge a pretty good price for it. But they do lots of special events also. They've created a real following, particularly amongst millennials. It's a young audience that goes there.
Yvette, you want? I'm sorry.
It's a very hip place to go. That's the new mission in San Francisco.
Yvette, you want to add something?
Yeah, they said a lot. It's different though because you don't have alcohol. Alan doesn't serve alcohol. It's very traditional. It's very family oriented. The Grand Lake also does a lot of different events. So
yeah, we just started working with a local church. There was holy church services every Sunday morning at the Grand Lake, and we started in mid-January, and they were just going great guns. They were a good tenant. We were really happy to have them, and of course, they're shut down now too. We can't do that. We don't have anybody in the theater, but we know that they'll be back when we're allowed to have people in, when it's safe for audiences to come out again. And we always do all kinds of events. We were really looking looking forward to San Francisco Film Festival next month. You know, they had 3 or 4 events scheduled in my theater. And we do a lot of political events, of course. We do fundraisers and a lot of special screenings and things like that. We had a comedy night just recently. A group rented us on Saturday night about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they sold out the main auditorium with tickets ranging from $70 down to $50. I was amazed. I don't think we'd ever seen anything, you know, as ambitious going in there before. So I mean, there are a lot of things that happen there, and well, you know, it'll all come back. It'll all come back to us.
Mainly related around Oakland and the city and the community of Oakland.
Yeah, the city. You know, as far as the
something
city,
that Alan could do.
Yeah, Gary, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's something that Alan can do at the Grand Lake that follows up on sort of a history there, is that when he reopens, let's say that there aren't 4 great movies to open that first week, he could do a We Love Oakland festival playing the great films made in Oakland or by Oakland filmmakers that have been huge success at the Grand Lake. He could do a little week-long festival of those things. Some of those filmmakers might even show up because they love the theaters. The Grand Lake is where so many of our global filmmakers grew up going to the movies. It's where they fell in love with the movie.
That's a fantastic
that's
idea.
The kind of creative thing that can be done.
Hey, that leads me a quick question for Gary real quick. Gary, you ran one of the world's great film festivals on Telluride. What about the future of film festivals on all this?
Film festivals, unless they have a financial reason to not be able to happen again, they're going to be probably just fine. We also have too many film festivals, so if a few of them drop out, I won't miss them. I like each one of them, but you know, we have 100 film festivals in the Bay Area every year.
Jeez
I don't
Louise.
know how sustainable that really is. But festivals the Silent Film Festival, which was supposed to be the end of April, they've rescheduled their date in November. They picked their dates already. For example, San Francisco International was supposed to be, as Alan said, in a few weeks. Their program book actually is on the website. It was ready to go, but that's just canceled. That's not going to reoccur because nobody knows when this could happen. You can't just say, okay, we're going to do the festival in 2 weeks. And of course, in the fall, we have a number of important fall festivals, particularly here, the Valley Film Festival. And they don't want to run into that. So a lot of festivals are just going to skip a year. If they are in cities where there aren't a lot of festivals, they may be able to move back 6 months or whatever the time you want to be.
Hey, quick question for everybody. Netflix. What's the impact of Netflix on your business? A bit of a softball question, I would think, but I'm curious to hear your answer. And is it something that portends a trend that should be feared, or what?
You know, Steny, I think like Gary earlier gave sort of a nice list of all the threats that we faced over the years. Radio was going to put us out of business, and TV was going to put us out of business, and DVDs were going to put us out of business. You know, I think that people are always going to want to go out to the movies, and people are also always going to want to watch movies at home. And you know, one is not exclusive of the other. I think one of the good things about Netflix is they've been financing movie production, and they've been stimulating the industry, and they have put together some very nice films that have gone out into the theaters and done some business. I think I would be hopeful that maybe down the line, Netflix might become more like a more regular film distributor and give the theaters a proper window before going out on their streaming service. But I don't see Netflix or any of these other streaming services putting us out of business. It's like back in the 50s, I think some gloom and doom people were saying that TV dinners were going to put the restaurants out of business. It didn't happen. Swanson's is still around.
He's right.
Your thoughts, Gary?
You know, we did have before VHSs and cable, there was pay TV in the very late 60s. Pat Weaver, Sylvester Weaver, who's Sigourney Weaver's dad, who ran NBC, went over and started this whole pay TV thing. And the film industry actually went full force to shut it down. there were ads in the movie theaters, which we didn't have ads in movie theaters those days, but there were ads saying vote no on pay TV. They were very aggressive ad campaigns. The streaming services are really, in a way, they're their own worst enemies because there's going to be so many of them. And there becomes a point where we as consumers say, I can't pay an average of $10 a month for 10 different ones. So which are going to be the winners? Disney Plus is going to be a winner. Netflix right now is a winner, but you never know. It could change. Maybe Apple TV comes forward really strong in a couple of years and knocks them out. And so that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. But what Alan said is true. There are a lot of filmmakers who have great films in them, but couldn't get financing for. And these various streaming services, led, I guess, today by Netflix, are providing them that. And those films often play in film festivals. The big circuits won't play the movies that are on Netflix or a streaming service unless there is a 90-day window. The independents have been more open to doing that because they know that there are people who don't subscribe to Netflix or who want to see the new Martin Scorsese film on the big screen, not on the TV screen. That's the way I feel about that. I want to back up a little bit to a couple of thoughts on this VOD, where Alan was saying how these films that were playing in theaters, suddenly there were no theaters. He didn't see a problem with the studios deciding to put them on video on net, which I agree with completely. What I wish that they were smart enough to do were two things. One, if you rent Invisible Man on TV tonight, then at the beginning and the end, there's a couple of trailers for films that are coming out later this year from that studio, and there's a card that says, coming to a theater only near you. But they're not smart enough to do that. The second thing that I would like to have seen them do, which is happening in the art house world, is that the distributors are making these films that they were going to release but now can't, available for VOD, but you have to go to an art house to book the film. And the theaters are getting 50% of the revenue. So the theaters are sending out emails to their list of people saying, this film was coming to our theater, obviously we can't show it now, but you can still see it, and you can help support the theater by booking a ticket here. And I think those are two really interesting things. But the studios, of course, they weren't going to share any of it with the theaters.
You hit up on something that I'd like to get your guys' reaction to. I was at CES this year and happened to sit next to a gentleman with full screen, which is one of the new style agencies. And to make a long story short, we were talking about I was talking about the Grand Lake, and I forgot how we got in the conversation over lunch, but I'll cut to the chase. You all remember Fruitvale Station, and then, of course, Boots Riley films, each ones of which have an Oakland basis. But it seemed to me, and he agreed when we were talking, the gentleman I was eating lunch with, that the future of film, in part, may be locally produced productions that then have a national audience or reaction, but then because of the nature, I think, Gary, you hit on it, support or help support the local independent, like a Grand Lake Theater. Is that a possible future?
I think the more films that get produced, the better off we all are, because it's like an artist and a blank canvas. Sometimes he creates a masterpiece, or she creates a masterpiece. Sometimes it's crap, right? You just don't know. And I think it's great, that more and more things. I think a great example is there was a film that just premiered streaming on Amazon last week called Blow the Man Down. And it's actually very good. It's sort of a film noir thing, a little bit with a Fargo-ish flavor. And it was done by these two women directors up in Maine, I think it was. And no one had ever heard of them before, or at least I haven't. But they made this film. It's getting very good reviews. It's being widely viewed on the streaming service. And on the back of this, they're going to become regular directors. You're going to see, when things get back to normal and films start going back into production again, you're going to see a studio, whether it's an art house studio or it's a major studio, give them a chance at a big budget film. And just like Ryan Coogler, Ryan went out and he went out on a limb, created Fruitvale Station. It became a very successful film. And now look at him. He's directing $200 million movies for Disney. So I mean that's the evolution that we want to see happen in our industry. To get these people out there, to get them launched, and to create a stream of better product downstream. We need new blood. We need new directors, because George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, they're going to retire at some time. I think Lucas already has. Steven Spielberg, he's in his 70s now. I mean, how long is he going to keep going? We need young, fresh filmmakers that can speak to a young audience. And these streaming services are really wonderful incubators for the future of feature film that we will see in theaters.
Gary, your thoughts?
Agreed.
We've got.
Yeah,
I can't add to that.
yeah.
We've got now.
Yeah, well, that's something.
Yeah.
So when those young directors come out, it's considered art, and you want to leave your house to see art. You don't want to watch art at home. It's date night. It's art. It's keeping people out and connected. It's a beautiful thing.
In the remaining 13 minutes we have, or 13 to 15, what films are you three actually looking forward to? I know I have my favorite, but I'll say, but I'm subordinate. Alan?
Kinds of films, and of course Black Widow. I like the Marvel universe. It seems to be the most popular thing going right now.
Excuse me. Yes.
And I'm excited about that. I'm intrigued with Steven Spielberg's remake of West Side Story coming up.
Yeah.
Was scheduled for Christmas. I don't know if it will be. Whatever it is. But I mean, there's so much. There's such variety that comes out in the industry. And of course, the next Black Panther movie. I'd love to see that. I mean, Ryan Coogler has been a wonderful booster of the Grand Lake. He saw all of his boyhood films there at the theater. When Black Panther came out a few years back, he was doing all the interviews locally, and he was saying, I grew up in the Grand Lake Theater. It's the best theater. Go see it. Go see it there. And it set house records. We've never seen such crowds at the Grand Lake before. It was amazing. And so, that's something I'm looking forward to. I think the future is bright for film. I do agree with Gary that the circuits have to clean up their act and do a better job of presentation. Unfortunately, the projectionist union, which at one time was very strong and had really great, talented, professional projectionists, they've been sort of pushed aside by the big film companies, and they really are hardly a handful of them left. We have union projectionists at the Grand Lake. And so we hardly ever have a technical problem there because they know what they're doing and they keep the equipment maintained. They're great people. They're dedicated to the craft, and we're proud of the projection and sound have. And yet you see complaints all the time, of films in major circuit theaters. People go, "Oh, it was too dark. It was out of focus, or the sound was bad, or it broke down in the middle." I think there's not a real pride in the presentation, the showmanship that really built this industry from storefront Nickelodeons in the early part of the 20th century to what it became, the golden age of the movies in the 20s and 30s and 40s. And so we need to get back to that. We really need to get back to that, and things have to be really special. It has to be a special event, and I think that maybe if there is a shakeout in the industry, theaters like the Grand Lake will be the ones that survive, because we offer our customers a lot more for a lower price than when you go to AMC or Regal.
Gary, your thoughts?
Yes.
Or Yvette?
Again, I'm looking forward to West Side Story, In the Heights, Lin-Manuel Miranda's film. Mulan kind of intrigued me. Wonder Woman 1984 could be really good.
Yes.
There's, you caught me off guard with this question. I should have prepared myself, but there are going to be a lot of independent films that are going to come out whenever. Everything's sort of up in the air. Nobody really can say when these films are going to be released, so it's kind of hard to know. That And the studios can't really even start to plan it until they have some sort of indication that there's a date when theaters can reopen. I think there's another Pixar film coming up called Soul, and this Onward got really killed because it did get to open in theaters, but the virus was starting to happen and take its toll. People were aware of it, and people didn't want to bring their kids to a theater where there's a chance that something could happen to them. So I think that really hurt that. So I think that really hurt that film. Obviously, it got 2 weeks and then the theaters closed. Artemis Fowl kind of intrigued me. Kent Branagh directing with Judi Dench and Josh Gad. That can be fun. Fantasy film based on really popular children's books. There's a Tom Hanks film, the Greyhound trailer, which is kind of intriguing looking. I think it's German U-boats. I used to like horror films, but most of them I don't anymore. Top Gun Maverick, the Tom Cruise sequel, could be really good. The Grand Lake would be fantastic in places because that big screen and that sound, that's what you want to see. And I remember the first time I saw the first one, it was at a great presentation house, and it was just exciting.
Yes.
I couldn't care less about another Ghostbusters film, but I hope it's good. James Wright is directing, so and he's directed the originals. The French Dispatch, that's Wes Anderson. So always looking forward to new Wes Anderson film. So there's a few.
You bet.
Sammy, what I'm looking forward to is just people going back to theaters. It doesn't matter what we're watching. I want to see people come back to the theaters. Yvette and I love going to movies. We go to the Grand Lake every Friday night or Saturday night to watch a movie, even if it's not something that's very good, or even if it's something that we've seen before, just to go out and be with the audience and be in the theater and just enjoy the audience and be in the theater and just enjoy that wonderful ambiance of the surrounding and people around us. And we so miss that in our lives. And I know that there's so many millions and millions and millions of people all around the world that also miss that in their lives and are looking forward to coming back to it.
Hey, Yvette, what are you looking forward to in terms of film, real quick?
Well, I agree with my husband on the films that the guys mentioned. I'll see all of them.
We watch them all.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to. Gary, go ahead. Go ahead, Gary. Oh, I thought Gary was going to say something.
Kathy and I miss going to the movies with you guys now at the Grand Lake.
Yeah, we often do.
Together sometimes.
Yeah.
We get together with Gary and Kathy. We go to one of the local restaurants by the Grand Lake and then watch a movie. We love it.
Very fun.
I love the Vietnamese restaurants, really kick ass. But one movie that I'm dying to see, and I hope they get right, that none of you mentioned, is Godzilla versus Kong, or as I like to say, King Kong versus Godzilla.
I love Godzilla's Denny. I like
And it was a bomb at the box office.
Well, yeah, the other one was.
Sorry. If you thought it should be a hit, I said,
Hey, look, I can't help it. It's like I grew up with the thing. It was literally created when I was born. I mean,
yeah.
What do you think about it, Gary? Are you going to tell me it's you're not looking forward to it either? That's cool. I understand.
Well, I will. It's one of those things where when it comes out and I hear what it's like, then I'll decide whether I'm going to waste my time or not waste my time. The last couple of Godzilla films haven't done much for me. The original Godzilla vs. King Kong, of course, is hilarious because it was a Japanese film with men in Godzilla and King Kong suits walking around banging into each other. Supposedly there was a different ending in Japan. Godzilla wins, and America King Kong wins.
Right.
I'm a fan of the old Toho Godzilla films. The really great ones. But we'll see.
I still say the greatest Godzilla film ever made was the original one, 1954. That was actually played at the Balboa and also the Grand Lake. And it showed Godzilla as an instrument of destruction. In closing, I want to thank you all. Hey, stick around. I'm just going to close the live stream. I want to thank everybody who's viewed consistently through this. And hey, go to the Grand Lake. Enjoy the Miley Wurlitzer. Spend your money, folks. I can't emphasize enough. Spend your money at the Grand Lake. Theater
When we reopen.
when you reopen, and be sure to subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube. And thanks, Alan, Gary, and Yvette. And again, stick around. I'm just going to close the live stream. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for watching. I'll see you. Okay, you on YouTube, and thanks, Alan, Gary, and Yvette. And again, stick around. I'm just going to close the live stream. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for watching. I'll see you. Okay, and that ends the stream.
Thank you.
Okay, and that ends. Yeah.